Hello, everybody. I'll tell you a couple of words about us. Sasha will also tell a little bit about us. We've been thinking about how can we disclose the name of the presentation. I've been making a presentation some time ago, and I was thinking about ML and DevSecOps or DevSecOps in ML, and we decided to create this new word that we invented. And this word also was invented by us. And before, it wasn't even Googled, so it was very cool. So we here are telling you about our own work. Okay, I will take clicker and I will switch slides so that you would have a changing picture in front of your eyes. I may not do that, but well, what do we do? What is safe development for us? ML models, artificial intelligence, work and all this applied, and we would like to discuss what you would like to listen to your questions, and I don't know, just ask them. In the board that we have down there. And I just want to have some possibly live discussion. You might have some useful thoughts. We would have some useful thoughts. And we all should start moving in a proper, more safe direction. We're going to speak about what really happens in the industry, generally speaking. Well, it's logical. For some reason, we started doing this. We'll show you some statistical information. I like it. It's interesting. Then we will speak about what are the solutions available from the instrumental point of view, instrumental approach, some platforms, some architectural ones, and what can be done with it. And we're going to show you our own work. I called it Elegant Solution of Non-Trivial Objectives. That's how we called it. And we started solving them. So this is going to be the most important thing that we're going to discuss today. Well, the current work. Super light statistical information, then I will have some cooler statistical information. Well, we have pulled all different statistical information related to why you as companies might need it. Because I wanted to speak about digitalization programs until 20 whatever year and say that we always have artificial intelligence and ML models inbuilt in it. But let's use something that is available currently in the world. So 35% of companies actively do use artificial intelligence and some modules of machine learning. And by active, I mean that not one, not two modules. And it's a really business feature which stops development of the company, stops money making if it's going to break. But half of these companies in this beautiful research, and there's a link to it, they are using artificial intelligence, but for one, two business objectives, not as active. But it's logical that it can also may reduce the picture. For another good research that was done by people from Hidden Layer, from this research we have read and translated for you that 98% of top managers, well, this is the vast majority of top managers, they think that for them, implementation of some features with artificial intelligence, with machine learning, will allow the company to grow, especially profit-wise. Will bring the company to some success, higher level of success than right now. Maybe this is related to some general programs and market movements, but generally we will perceive it as like 100% of people think that something automated and having some model will help them to be afloat and to earn money. Now, more interesting statistical information. Out of all the companies that actively use machine learning, those companies that have in their business functions, will have discovered the following. There were some leakages, incidents, and it would be strange if they wouldn't be available, and 77% of them were 77% of companies have discovered these leaks and incidents. And I'd like this statement, for which I just give 10 points. It's a direct translation that 23 remaining percent, they didn't say they didn't have incidents with models, but they were not confident did they have them or not. I think this is a very good formulation for annual report, and I will also use it in some of our articles and reports because, well, that's pretty cool. And some more numbers. They all are big, more than 50%. And the most important thing that I would like to emphasize here, it's that almost 100% of leads
Под руководителями здесь подразумеваются эти лиды, и
by top managers, we mean leads, CTO.
и считают, что
So people think about security and they believe that this is really needed thing. Some of them, vast majority, thinks that, well, they need to invent somehow how to reduce risks of implementation of artificial intelligence into their applications. And some other part, most of them also gives some money for that. Last year, only 61% of these beautiful mass have been able to use this budget.
это прям плохо. Странно, что
And not using this budget, it's very bad, and it's very strange that we're able to do that.
момент закончится.
Well, this is the end of all our numbers at this moment of time. This is us. If you look at us, that's how we look like. My name is Svetlana, and my colleague Aleksandr, Sasha. He's MLSecOps, he's our expert. You could read some of his articles, researches. If not, please read them. We work in positive technologies, and we are trying to raise this industry from the knees. Well, at least we have to put it in the knees first. So please join our community, which is available. It's open source, Wikipedia. Please add yourself to this Wikipedia. Take it for yourself, make forks from it, and whatever. It will never become paid. There's a big ML security section, and there's another colleague who provides at least 50% of his time into this wiki. Take it, use it in any convenient format. I want you to have it, because if we share knowledge, we do everything properly. And right now, I want you to listen to a more complicated numbers and maybe some interesting statistics. So right now, I would like to give floor to Sasha. That's it. And Sasha is going to tell you some interesting information. Hello, thank you very much for coming. Few words about horrors. I think you already see a well-known advance Mitria. So what is the main idea? Attacks are happening. We have vulnerabilities on the learning machine learning, and we cannot deny it. For example, in Avasp, there are top 10 for threats which they have. And they made a separate one for machine learning, which you can find. And they've separated, as I've said in the presentation, and I've been telling you a lot of different things. I've received some feedback, and one of these feedbacks was, why? In principle, classical information security does cover these vulnerabilities related with machine learning. Okay, I can say that. Companies like these, they do provide some money, and this trend is available. Mitria, they have classical vulnerabilities map and machine learning vulnerabilities map. It has more than 20 described attacks and incidents, and plus minus they are described by certain domains. Prototype, it's a small company. Well, what? They are involved in machine learning security, and they made their own product, database of vulnerabilities related with tools which participate in supply chain for the machine learning. They have paid subscription, and they have a demo subscription, which includes 2 times less vulnerabilities, which you can search with big delay. OpenCVE, many of you do know it, but after making a small research, I just took Zerflow, Torch, some scares, the main frameworks in which and tools which are used by ML people. And I've been also doing a lot of development in this area as well. And the main idea is that by adding all these vulnerabilities, we get more than 500, maybe even more than 1,000, if you remember all of them. So what about your horrors? I've been asked when we've been making this presentation, that asked us why you have such a strange name. And I decided to put this introduction, which we made in 5 minutes. If you've never been making this speech, you do it like that. You invent what you're going to speak about, and we had this phrase, top statistics and horror. And it's like second or the third time when we reuse this phrase. So that's why we like it. And we will keep it. Like, why are we doing it? Because there are top statistics and horror stories. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. I've been speaking about Mitria, and there's a few good attacks that I would like to speak about. The first one attack against mobile applications. Models in mobile application. The main idea is that we take certain market, we collect certain APKs with models inbuilt inside of it. We have extracted. We did something with it, and what we've done next. Speaking about regular model with certain logic, and we have connected another model. Then we have collected APK again, and then we have the mobile application, which can easily be assembled. It started, it worked, and it has sent some information to servers. But the problem was in something else. There was no defense from it. And almost all of them, they've been providing some numbers that almost more than 90% of these applications, they were vulnerable. And this attack has to be developed from the supply chain side, but this ML part was easily disclosed. Another good example, VirusTotal. Many people do know what it is, but main idea is in this antivirus, there was an ML model which was analyzing files, and the main idea was that some criminal took an encoder, the simplest one, default one, went it through the metamorphic code engine and received a lot of slurry, that was there. Antivirus was finding all of it, discovered all these vulnerabilities, and starting with the next release cycle, when the model was updated, these examples went into the data set. So the data set was poisoned, and the model have relearned on the basis of this new data, and it stopped adequately discovering the initial encoder, even though previously it did it.
Ворвусь опять, знаете, в Сашин доклад.
And I would like to interfere into Sasha's presentation because we're going to switch why we are doing this.
Логично, да, что все, что заканчивается на SecOps.
It's logical that everything that ends on SecOps, we will do it.
В свое время с безопасной разработкой.
And it was like that with safe development. And we are in this track. So it's sinful not to remember about it.
Зачем вообще это делать?
So when people been asking me about this, why are you doing this? You can do some pen testing and that's it. And I had those Vietnamese flashbacks like 10 years ago. Do you remember what DevSecOps we had? What was the safe development back then?
Я тоже нифига не помню, потому что ее не было.
Yeah, I don't remember anything like that because I wasn't there. There were some approaches which they've called SSLDLC from Microsoft, etc. There was Secure Agile, which I even have discovered. It doesn't sound very good, but nevertheless, it's still a truth that we have survived. And let's see what we have right now in Resolve. This light thinking, 2 tracks dedicated to development in all the cyber feast. A big part of program is given for the security of applications and questions of development. I think it shows the super importance and actuality of everything that we do as a team. And it would be super logical to do something else that we could see that would be important and logical. And for me, the most important thing and nicest thing that we hear the negative feedback, people come to me and say, who the hell needs it? We see misunderstanding of, oh my God, are you confident that it's going to work? And vast majority, approximately 75-80% of people come to me and they say, okay, it's cool, please do it, help us. Will you make a product? We'll make a platform on the basis of this. And I think this is a super wonderful statistics which will be collected by me someday. Those who've been giving negative information, those who've been giving positive information, those who've implemented and became and reached the pinnacle. Well, MLSecOps look like that. I came to my boss at the end of the year with a very curious face, and 30 seconds I've been standing there and said, do you know what have we invented? And that's why I created MLSecOps. So basically speaking, as you can see, even DevSecOps is not a word that didn't exist some time ago. And in a couple of years, MLSecOps, we will hear not only from us, like from us who are sitting here, came here and listened about it, but also from people in the market. And there will be some stories of industrial implementation. And this is our plan.
Чуть-чуть про домены MLSecOps. Вот, я когда-то
Several words about MLSecOps domains. I was showing this picture some time ago, but I really want Sasha to tell you about it in great detail and why MLSecOps is not DevSecOps.
Здесь нет лазера. Хотел бы кое-что там показать, но не суть.
There's no laser to show you something.
Видимо, да, буду сейчас бегать, пальцем крутить.
Yeah, I will show with my finger.
Картинка, но суть в чем?
I don't really like this picture, but the main idea is that initially we thought the following.
Получается, в правом верхнем углу вот эти...
In the right top corner, these two rectangles is something that covers DevSecOps practices. For example, if you look at the ML development, you
сбора данных, там, ее
have data collection, methods of operation, some purging, then experimenting, then hypothesis, then testing of this hypothesis, creating models, selecting best models, creating interface, putting this into application, hosting in the cloud, transferring into application. And the main idea is that we should have it, top-down and actually, DevSecOps practices. Well, in ML, you have the same. You're also writing code. You can apply tools, scans. You can build safe processes. However, the idea was we wanted to show that DevSecOps practices, they cover only right upper corner. Maybe a learning algorithm is not covered, but what is being covered by the rest? Well, the rest of the pipeline also can be attacked, and it is attacked, and there are specific threats for every specific process and every specific artifact which is located inside of it. So the idea was we had to extend DevSecOps in such a way so that everything else would also be covered by this practical approach, and that's how we come up with MLSecOps. That was the main idea.
Перейдем немножко к хорошим новостям.
Okay, let's go to the good news. We've told you that we don't have tools. Not many people think about it, and generally speaking, ML security kind of a little bit behind. ML actively was ready in 17th, 18, and it's being used, but about threats and attacks, people did know about it previously.
Но с другой стороны,
but it didn't go to the general field, and I would like to show you that.
Движемся в сторону
we are moving
вот из hidden layer, из этого
in a good direction.
Этот отчет уже
And from hidden layer company, well, you've seen this information already. What's interesting here is a special framework for risk management and assessment. It's a pretty good one.
Кто не успел сфоткать,
Here's another slide. If you didn't make a picture of it, well, we'll have a QR code where you will be able to download all these materials. And you can see here,
возможно, вы отсюда не знаете. И все остальные тоже
all the companies and everybody are moving in this direction, and they're making articles, manuals, frameworks for safety, security, and risk assessment related with ML, especially attacks against ML. And specifically, I would like to speak about Databricks. They've published a very good framework related with machine learning security. They've looked a lot of different attacks. They have their own mitigations, and we'll speak about them a little bit later, and we'll come back to it as well. Also, about technical components and tools. There are very few tools, especially industrial tools, which are well tested, which can be inbuilt in the process. But there's a lot of open sources that are being attached. And in this table, in this spreadsheet, we are going to have the overview for it. Well, we'll speak about it later. But what I would like to tell you right now, it's that people are moving in the direction of keeping ML secure in the process of its development as well. How can you build MLSecOps? And super noticeable picture here.
Если что, QR-код.
Well,
Посмотрите.
there is QR code. Please look.
Важно.
With all the phones and everything, because this is very important. Why this is important, I'll tell you. And by the way,
картинку из статьи, она очень мне нравится.
I took this picture from the article. I really liked it. Why? Because this is a maximally detailed and proper description of ML conveyor.
Чтобы построить, как нельзя построить
how we cannot build DevSecOps without a well-built DevSecOps process. Without MLSecOps, you cannot build it without this conveyor. And all the developments we are trying to build on the basis of this scheme.
Так, сейчас я немножко все-таки порасскажу, еще чуть-чуть, как бы вот.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. Well, you can follow these links. There's our own frame,
Тоже может вам сказать.
our own development, and Sveta is also can tell you that actually this is the version that
Про нее
was never approved. Not many people know about it. And we're telling you about it for the third time already. And all the materials that were in this presentation, they're available on this link.
Суть в чем?
Does it work backwards? Well, the main idea is that we cannot build process while there is no order in the company, while there is no order in the development framework team. The top manager and the company should be aware. They should understand on which place it is placed and how does it work. The process has to be described, regulated. We should build all the interrelations, and only after this we can inbuild security. Why? Because when you don't have the process, point by point implementation of protection elements, it will be like a drop in the sea. It's not going to work without a full system.
Про фрейм, про материалы.
So out there, I'm speaking about frames and materials.
Схема, да, как делаются методологии.
Yes, in the classical scheme, how the methodology is being developed. Give me the clicker.
Ушли уже по ссылкам, да?
I think you already have followed the links.
В принципе, как очень любим делать свои фреймворки и методологии.
But we do like making our frameworks and methodologies. Yes, of course, your work is closer to you. So generally, we have approached the situation that after studying everything that is available, and when we started doing this, there was nothing to study. And then we came to DAS framework and bricks, and then something else, some other materials are coming to us. However, it's like a story. When we started working with DevSecOps, I don't really love Busim. I don't like this maturity model. It does have some interesting ideas, but most of it is like, do you need a statistical analyzer, bro? And that's spirit. That's very bad. It's not a methodology. It's not standard, not a framework. It's just a beautifully PR'd marketing paper. It's bad. It shouldn't be like that. Well, and then we try to foresee what's going to appear somewhere, and maybe it's going to be not completed. So we decided to develop something on our own. It took us a lot of time to create a structure, development of our own clear statements so that it would help you. So I will be very glad if you will read it. It will give us some feedback about it. And this all has been published on this wonderful free site with our Wikipedia. So you all are going to have access to it. So we've created framework which was really similar structurally to framework because we've used to it, and it would be very strange if we would invent something new, following some standard which is not accepted by anybody else. So we decided to use, we have domains, practices, and activities. If some names will change, well, for us it was of principal importance to transfer the main idea. We have 4 domains. Each one of them will be decomposed, and Sasha will tell you in more detail. And then you will ask questions about some other domains if we have them. Or maybe you have been, touched by something in this material.
Мы их поделили на 4 части.
Let's begin with domains. We divided them into 4 parts, and the main idea was that data management came from what? From the research point of view, we do understand that a big number of attacks and vulnerabilities are related with data, because this is the most vulnerable block section in the area of development. Data. Everybody likes to, it's very expensive to collect data and go to some open source, download half of Google. Well, everybody doing it, and this is normal in the industry. At the same time, there's a big number of vulnerabilities which are inbuilt on this stage, and then they destroy the whole process of development, and vulnerability goes into production. And the main idea is that building this process of data collection, tagging, pre-processing, in order not to allow a possibility of data leakage or maybe data poisoning. That's the main idea of this domain. The next logical chain is the development itself. We take experiments. These experiments and the hypothesis is being created, create a model, and they use a lot of methods which allow them to improve quality by a couple of percentage points.
Причем мы используем там методы, да, для того, чтобы...
Plus, we are using these methods to take some regular model and
на нее чуть накидываем...
move it. Then we take pre-learned model and then we change it and publish it as our own. And all these things that I've been speaking about, they're very subject to different attacks. There could be backdoors in models themselves. These open source models can also be poisoned and something could be done with them. And nobody pays attention to this. So this domain describes how should we work with models, with data, and how we should develop our own models in a safe way. So deployment process is also very well understandable. We've trained the model, we've created an interface of access. This can be API, this can be simply application. And how can we properly assemble it and deliver the model to end consumer and do it in such a way so that this can be easily updated, improved. So in this domain, we are trying to disclose this particular topic. And MLOps, honestly, I didn't like the final name, MLOps. I've been thinking about how can I rename it. But we kept it like that.
Дело закончилось на том, что мне сильно не понравилось, но я забил и думал...
The end of story was that I decided, okay, we'll figure it out later. But the idea of the final domain is that we wanted to unite all these three stages into a full-scale platform, automated, so that we could follow some anomalies, threats within the whole cycle of development. Because at a given moment of time, yes, we have a small teams and small companies. They can have 1-2 people working on these three domains, but in bigger, mature companies, usually this is divided to separate divisions and departments, which don't really communicate with each other. So the idea is to create a common platform which is going to cover with security practices from the beginning to the end, and they all have to be interrelated to each other. Well, small example here. Let's look how do we show it. We have a data management domain. And, well, I've been speaking about it, and we will share practical information about it. Practical information is a little different level of abstraction. What do we want to do? What do we want to implement? And the activity, how we are going to implement it. We have data classification. We divide it into 4 activities, and that's how it looks right now. I don't really remember it because before PhD days, we decided to rewrite it. And how does it look right now? I don't really remember. The main idea is that we have a practice of classification. It has a small description of it. So our main objective is to do it in such a way so that all the data that are coming to the system somehow should be classified. On one side, we can classify it by data type so that it would come to the system. On the other side, we can classify it by some... How are we afraid that it will leak? We can classify it. Is there a pursuit or not? And this classification will influence its processing. It's a small aspect which comes with regulators, but doing this classification is very important from the very beginning. And as an option, we have to do obfuscation of the data. So what should we do? At this moment of time, before the presentation, it was about a week ago, we had 22 practices and 75 activities. Right now we have less practices, we have 18 of them, and activities about 80. As I've told you, on Databricks we have a good framework, and right now I had an idea. Do I want to compare it? Because when I was developing it in the process, I was said, okay, it was published and a long time ago. I've been writing letters to them. I told them, okay, please give me a possibility to read it, because they made an announcement. And when I've asked them, okay, can you give me to read it? And in 1 month they publish it. I really wanted to compare it, but the problem was that when I decided to do it, I wasn't able to do it. I thought it was very similar, but as a fact, take two practices from me and from them. It was really complicated to take and compare them. But right now, I will speak about advantages and disadvantages, pros and contras, about data bricks. The main idea, no matter how good it is, the main idea is that you have a problem, take our tool. You want to do something, install our platform. Yes, they do have some good tools and it's okay. But sometimes you want to get more details. What this tool is going to do specifically right now, what is its main idea? And we are trying not to get connected to tools, and we try to disclose this idea. What should be inside of this tool, and what specifically should be done. And then a big team, big company can allow themselves to buy big tools, expensive tools. Small team of developers may take some open source product and develop something of their own. So we are not trying to bring everything just to one solution. Well, here's another thing. Databricks framework, it's a non-commented framework. It's not bad, and this is also very convenient because we see the main vectors of attacks, where and from which direction they can move. But the biggest problem of this approach is connected to the fact that risks are changing very fast with time. And in about 1 year, it may become not as important as right now. And it's a big problem to update it. And as I've told you previously, we are trying to build it on the basis of the process. How can we properly build the process? How can we make it? Well, the idea initially was to open a framework and move up-down. So in this instruction, we should build a process, and then everything's going to be great and safe. As we were able to do it with, I'm not going to evaluate it, it's your objective. However, okay, let's move on. Databricks is beautiful. From marketing point of view, it's all clean and beautiful, and there's a link to it, and you will be able to move to it. But speaking for us, it's useful and applicationable. But the problem is that we didn't pay too much time. We can make it, but right now it's on the level of public web, and it's going to be completed very soon. But Databricks is beautiful from design point of view. Yeah. If you're not going to say good things about yourself, nobody else will. However, we have useful framework. And our main objective is to bring it to some level of completion when it's going to be cool and nice to work with it for everybody interested in it. And I would like to come back to DevSecOps. Our main objective for our team, why do we exist? Why do we have this department positive? Well, because we have to find a common language with developers, make some cool things so that it works with everybody. And it's a similar story here. And those who are involved in ML in companies could continue doing it, especially in a safety, security point of view, because everything is clear. There's no duality, and people from cybersecurity should understand it. It should be understood by people from, I don't know, C-levels, financial directors, etc., because everything comes from the head, and it's too stupid to argue against it. Also, I would like to add something else in support of this endpoint about applicability. Many people sitting here, they work in different companies, and I see some people from retail, from banks, from other companies I know. And please analyze after this presentation, if you will have a desire to have a light reflection, where do you use machine learning? Out of interesting things, well, it could be some oil company, cool and big companies. You can say, okay, let's try to use ML to predict where can we drill well. I'm from a small city, Neftekamsk, and I know how much it costs to build a well and how much it will cost if you drill well in the wrong place. And can you imagine if you will have some implemented supply chain attack in your model, and then will come to you in a very bad conditions and will forecast you the wrong place with big water cut for the oil, and maybe there will be no oil at all. It's not always that you have the old specialist, geological specialist who will predict it. So the same story with the bank. Can you imagine that the model will get crazy and will give loans with to people with bad loan rating? But when you start digging inside of your company, you will understand that applicability of this thing is really incredible, because risks that you will not do it are much above risks of the fact that you will do it, but not in a full volume. And a couple words about this wonderful comparison between Databricks and R-Frame.
Да, окей. Я понимаю, что все устали. Сейчас попытаемся уже чуть-чуть.
I understand that everybody's tired and we're going to do it a little bit faster. So I've been telling you that we tried to compare our framework and Databricks framework, and the only thing that I found similar, it was this.
Давайте сделаем...
On one side, we're saying, okay, let's make trustworthy component database, which will include all the libraries, open source. It will have some open source models, everything will be checked. Developers will write code, and in the end run, they will turn it into their own frameworks and libraries, because all this code will be checked and everything will be located in the right place.
Такой же идеи со стороны Databricks.
So approximately the same idea from the side of the Databricks, where they also are speaking about it, but on the other side they say our management system for Databricks is beautiful, take it. So we are trying to deploy it even more. Because it was so bad with the comparison that on the left side I'm showing the list of activities that we're speaking about on the level of platform. We've discovered only one example where they say, okay, let's build this. Here's the platform, it should do this. And this is one activity. Everything that you see here on the left side, it's a database of components, the safe conveyor movement, algorithm of discovery of anomalies, preventing attacks. These are several activities that will be described tomorrow in the framework. Yeah, they will be described. Just search for them.
Ну и, собственно, да, как вам Саша обещал,
Well,
потихонечку заканчиваем.
and as Sasha promised, we're coming to an end of our presentation, our speech,
Вопросам и так далее.
because we have time to go to Q&A.
Начать выводить всех, кого надо поблагодарить.
You know, we would like to put the names of those people who would like to say thanks. I would like to say thanks to my team, because my team has been involved in this craziness day and night, was helping me with presentation. And thanks to everybody who came. You came here not to hide from the heat, but because it's interesting to you and you will contribute into it. You all are very cool. Thank you very much.
Но предлагаю
And
на вопросы. Если
Q&A.
кто-то стесняется задавать их публично или хочет нас унизить, мы будем...
If you don't want to ask them publicly, we are going to be outside, so you can approach us outside as well. Thank you very much, Sveta. Let's go to Q&A section. How do you plan to integrate your tools in the current development?
Очень жалко, что нет конкретики.
Too bad there are no specifics, but if you'll show me the formulation, maybe something will integrate your means in the current development, for example, MU.
Ты признаешь этот вопрос или нет?
Sasha, do you understand this question? Question number one.
Пока мы разбираемся с формулировкой
вопроса, можете
While we're trying to understand the question, I will try to answer you. Well, possibly the question is related to how we will integrate these stories somewhere inside of our company. If not, say no, and I'm answering the wrong question. But honestly speaking, we are in a condition when any Even those tools that we have collected them by experience and things that we've been looking at and tried to implement somewhere. All this was much more. That's why inside of our own tools, if we will do it and implement it, maybe we will do it. This is also will be happening by the same experiential way when we will find some ideal comparison, time, money, and usefulness from some tool. If the question was about something else, please catch us and we will answer you to your real question. The next question: can you give me specific examples of informational security incidents? Which incident might happen with classifying rand forest? Well, briefly, I will give you the answer to this question. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, in the post-Soviet territory, people don't like to share open incidents. Unfortunately or fortunately, things that I do know, because we're under NDA, we've been showing examples of attacks that did happen on slides, and these are not only attacks. There's a link to Wikipedia, and you can read it in more detail about each one of them, and specifically about other attacks. This is not just something like, well, I don't know, theoretically could be done. No, this is something that was done. So these were pretty good examples. So replacing the model in antivirus, it's something very sad. And this question was about random forest. The idea is that random forest attack, it's a very simple classifier, but at the same time, any classifier ideally works with something. You can build a random forest that will work with pictures. Initially, any computer, any artificial network, it's a very stupid thing. It works only with zeros and ones. So the main objective will be, initially, you have like pictures, images, and transform them into vector, which will be downloaded into the model to teach it. At the same time, you can change this data so much that random forest will learn not what you need, but what the criminal needs. The simplest example of realization with random forest, I didn't see it, but it will be attack done in a very lab conditions, because attacks are made in very serious neural networks. But as an example, it can be. Okay, thank you. Next question. What is the most dangerous vulnerability that you've seen in your work with ML models? The most dangerous was... It's the type of attacks which is not done in the moment. These are very extended attacks which from the very beginning, they come to your platform, the criminals, they go to your platforms. They do the investigation, they see how the model is learning, and they're trying to pull information about the model from it, about its weights, etc. And in the future, when it's been exploited, by knowing the information about how this model was learning in such a way, they can change the incoming data if they have access to interface of entrance to the model. They can make requests. They can give such requests to the model that which no monitoring will be able to see, but they themselves will manage the model learning and will get the result they want to get from it. So this is a very complicated attack. It's a very complicated mathematically, because you have to understand how the model works internally, how it was learning, and make such requests that was made specifically for this model.
Есть такая возможность.
Давайте мы сначала пройдем по онлайн-вопросам, и потом, если время останется...
Okay, let's finish with online questions, and then we'll ask questions from the audience. And you can also use the function catch Aleksandr outside. Question: do you have any processes or models which possibly allow you to evaluate non-classical security of the model itself and truthfulness of the results of the output of the model for the system of technical vision? Truthfulness of the results of the output of the model and non-classical safety of the model itself. Do you have any processes in your framework for technical vision?
Тяжело, я не очень понимаю вопрос.
I don't really understand the question. If there is a person who can explain it, because honestly, I don't really understand what you mean by it. Next question. How the quality gate can look for the ops model and DevSecOps? How can you know that the model was taught something bad? Well, it's a pretty good one. I've tried to describe it, and it didn't get into the framework, but in my backlog, I do have this information. For example, you can do certain scans because you cannot apply same scanners to same models to same plans because domains can be very different. And even if you take images like medical images and images with cats and dogs, they are different images, even the same type of data. But the idea is that you can do the scanning for poisoning in the beginning, and you can look at some all data changes in the process and search for some anomalies. Another option that is available and that I would work on is working on a stricter level of remaining tests, which has to include the stage of the model interpretation in order for you to understand how it works under the hood, in order for you to understand that. For example, these quality gates can be installed, and if something is not working, you can roll back. Thanks for the answer. Next question. MLSecOps. Can you provide integrity from inside of the neural network using methodology of MLSecOps so that neural network would separate the access rights to those who launches it and changes its structure? It will not be possible to be done because the model itself, it's some binary called the matrix and nothing more. The model cannot be done like that. Most likely it will be a question to protection of the interface to getting access to the model. I don't think there's another way to do it. Well, the next question, it's a case. You've spent a lot of resources for preparing the learning sample. You've created and taught the model, the open source model. Then you included it. It successfully detects vulnerable packages. But the criminal can build his own model that will learn to break. And then with the help of transferability of the model, will destroy the detection model of yours. So how can we work with attacks of black box attacks? I really like this question. I don't know how to properly answer it because it's really wide, and the approach to protect yourself from this case, you need a full-scale process of development and the process of exploitation. And you have to think a lot about it. It cannot be answered immediately. If we have a person who asked this question, you can approach me a little bit later and discuss it in more detail, because it will take a lot of time to answer it. It's a consulting in 30 seconds. It will be a bad quality consulting in 30 seconds. So let's communicate afterwards at some ideological topic like this. Is there some specifics when you build MLSecOps in the process while using LLM? Specifics? Well, there are no specifics. We just recently been discussing before my presentation that I don't really understand why LLM is being separated from everything else. Yes, I do understand, but for me, I don't really like the situation. Ideally, the LLM, it's a generative model. And that's it. Afterwards, it makes no sense moving on. No big specifics. Yes, there are some from injections, working from interface connection, but not specifically. I wouldn't separate LLM as something separate. As a generative, yes, but LLM separately, no. Thank you very much. Possibly next question was before you came to this slide, but scoring framework, will it be added? Why awareness is not available in the framework in which rectangle in the picture, A, B1, B2, MLOps comes together with security?
Да, и все, что там скоринг, я думаю, будет добавлен, как я уже говорил.
The scoring will be added. As I've told you, it's a better version. This is something, well, we've shared with you the work that we've been doing until today. Of course, it's going to be extended, and we are going to improve all these practices that we've been showing to you. It also will involve complication of implementation and level of maturity of the team. And then from the level of maturity of the team, we will think about whether we'll apply this activity or not. Yes, we will extend it, but a little bit later. In the beginning, we have to complete it.
Чуть-чуть на другой вопрос.
And you just answered another question. What will you do in the future? But there's additional question. What about AI SecOps? Or maybe this is too old. AI SecOps and MLSecOps is the same thing. Actually, artificial intelligence and machine learning, well, there's a big question about translation and understanding. I do not separate them.
SecOps мы когда-нибудь сделаем.
Everything that ends on SecOps, we will do it someday.
Нервный смех, у меня наша команда тут сидит так.
I like this laugh. Our team is sitting and laughing. Maybe they don't want to.
Защитить автокодировки.
Is there a way of protecting autocoders? Autocoders can be defended. If you want to protect the complete models, well, you have to think about it. But actually speaking, if you will build a process, then yes. Why not? Because any coder will be learning on the basis of some model, and he will use some open source, some tools, and by protecting them, by protecting this process, you will protect the resource. If you will add some additional models, it also is possible. I will not tell you right now how it has to be done specifically, but we have to think more about it, and our time is running out. We have about 5-7 minutes left.
На практике, если да, какие...
Could you check this framework in practice and which results you were able to achieve?
Ну, наверное, я здесь отвечу, потому что...
Well, I'll give you the answer because we've been testing it
И учитывая, ну,
partially, and considering what we've been telling you about the speed, how it's changing and reburning once a week. Once one of these versions have been tested, I wouldn't say that it was a mass-scale testing for hundreds of companies, but I think that in DevSecOps for 100 companies have not been implemented by anybody else. A couple of stories are available, and they are very, I wouldn't say something incredible success stories, but this is something that gives food for thought in the future. So if you would like to test it on yourself, we'll be happy to do that with you.
Существуют способы сокрытия...
Are there ways
Существуют ли
of
способы
hiding an
недостатков
entity and discovery of these deficiencies in the ML?
Первая часть вопроса.
The first part of the question,
По идее, да.
ideally, yes, possibly yes. There's a method which allows you to hold the entity from the search. These attacks have been happening, and there's well-known attacks. And how can you protect yourself from this?
Эта атака чаще
This attack
управления данных или
begins with data poisoning in the beginning, or when there's a model is accessible. So when you can test this model and then pull some information from it.
забрать ее к себе.
For example, in order to understand how it works, you take it yourself to your home, understand it, and then search for these methods
Это, так сказать,
where it doesn't find it. So basically, it should be competitive attack. But everything depends on the model for this case.
вопрос. Как осуществляется разворачивание моделей в прод?
How the deployment of model is done into production, and which problems do you face more often?
Ничего не вывожу.
I'm not putting anything into production, but in a given case,
Это больше
once again, bringing something into production is a classical story. It's a protection of the supply chain.
с ML-кой есть такая история, что
But with ML, there's a story
не мои слова.
that, well, these are not my words, and
Ты видел, что прям такими красками
I've seen it in many places. Well, in red books, they say, don't deploy it and use. You put it as a service, give it an API, do it in the cloud, but don't deploy it on the end device. I disagree with it. Well, it's not a bad option, by the way, but it's related to certain risks. But there are methods of protection.
с ML это
And from what is related to ML, it's a problem.
все-таки существует. Это деплой, ну, конечно,
This problem does exist. Deploy for the endpoint, deploy for the end device. For example, mobile phone, as I've told you, this attack did happen. And if this model would not be inside of the application, but if it would not be as a service, but if it would be somewhere in the cloud, then it wouldn't be possible to do attack like this.